About 95% of people that initially clicked on this video have already clicked away and stopped watching. So for the 5% of you that are still here, this particular video is going to show the time lapse of everything that I did in order to create the animation that you saw at the start of the video. A step-by-step tutorial will be released on this channel as well for those of you who don't quite understand the different things that I did in this particular video and can't figure it out and want it in a more detailed step-by-step explanation that's been concised into a smaller video. However, since I see that most of the people don't actually watch this, I thought, why not give another reason to continue watching? So for this particular video, I'll be telling you guys a story. So for the next 58 minutes, buckle up and hopefully you enjoy the journey that you're about to embark on. A couple of years ago, there was a man. He used to work a normal corporate job, a 9 to 5, every single day of the week, every single week of the month, every month of the year. Of course, he used to get his weekly Sundays off, which he used to spend preparing mostly for all of the work that's left for the next week. He definitely loved his job, but he always thought that there was something more to life, something that can't be achieved by working in a 9 to 5. However, he chose to continue working, and he chose that whatever he does, he's going to do with his full effort. He's going to put his mind, body, soul into it. He continued working all of his sweat, tears, and blood until he finally started getting promoted. As he started getting promoted and stepped into managerial positions, he realized that his potential was not limited to just this corporate job in this particular region. So he went on to talk to his boss and spoke about the possibilities of having him take on clients in other regions of the world. And the boss saw his diligence and his perseverance and his work ethics and thought that maybe it is time that he gives another chance to this man, a chance to show his worth and get clients from abroad. So the boss decided to send him over to a special meeting, a meeting that would be held in this tropical island, present quite far from any other city in the world. The clients there wanted to meet for an exclusive deal that would be worth quite a bit, but it was very important that they get the deal. Of course, this man agreed immediately because it was the first time he had a chance to prove his worth and to prove his abilities in sectors across just his single unit back in his corporate office. So they planned and created the necessary pitch and presentation to show to their clients, hoping to bag a deal. And once he was prepared, after working for a very long time, the tickets were booked and the dates were finalized. Once the date began to arrive, tension began building within this man's body. He was very stressed, and he knew that the fate of the company lied within his hands. He had one opportunity to get this right. And if he did not succeed, his future beyond the seas would be crushed forever. So with a lot of tension and stress, he decided that it's about time that he stopped thinking about the worst and began thinking about how he can make this the best possible presentation that his clients would have ever met. He worked on it and refined it and practiced it until he was 100% sure that there's no way that the clients would refuse this deal. As the date approached, he got ready, he packed everything, and left for this tropical island. It was a 7-hour flight in which all he could think about was what would happen if he actually got the deal. He knew that this would make his life completely take a different turn because after this, most of his clients would be abroad and he would travel the world and make money doing what he loved. But even then, during this 7-hour flight, amidst a little bit of turbulence, he wondered, what if even that isn't enough? Maybe there's something else to life that's worth exploring, something that might exist beyond the general job. But as the turbulence cleared, he realized that even if there was such a thing, right now his task is only one, and that is to bag the client. And so he decided to focus on his job and go there and make the best first impression that he could. As he landed, he was greeted with a lot of warmth. Everything was settled, and he had no issues traveling all the way to his hotel where he stayed the night. The next day was the big presentation. He got everything set up, absolutely ready, and he aced it. He made the best presentation that the clients had ever seen. He didn't show any nervousness or any awkwardness, and he presented it like he was a professional who's done this for years, even though it was the first time he was actually presenting to a foreign client. The clients agreed to the proposal and immediately called up his firm and said that yes, you are going to get this particular deal, and we would like to have this deal every single year. And we want to make sure that every single year when you give us this deal, this man is the man that comes and presents it, so that our own employees can also learn some speaking skills and presenting skills. This made the man ecstatic. He felt euphoria that he never did before. And he decided that it was a job well done and it was time for him to go home and rest. He had a taxi booked for him that would take him from his hotel all the way to the airport. But the path involved going through a forest in the middle of the night. He was pretty scared, but what's the worst that could happen, is what he thought, as he began his journey through the forest. In the middle of the forest, the worst of what he could expect happened, and the engine failed. The car broke down, and the driver knew absolutely nothing of how he could possibly fix the car, and he knew that the only way he would successfully get out of this is if they survived till the morning somehow. And during the day, they hoped that they'd eventually get more people who traveled through this route to eventually help them fix the car, or at least hitchhike a ride back to either the hotel or to the company. They were scared, but decided that there was nothing else to do but to go back into their car and just wait for the night to get over. As they were waiting, they saw three figures come in from the side. They were holding lanterns and walking towards the car. They were really scared, but also delighted to see that maybe they might have received help. So they didn't know whether they should be exiting the car and greeting these three strange men, or whether they should stay in the car and lock themselves up and hide, hoping that the men don't notice that there are passengers within the car. Essentially, as they sat and contemplated the best move forward, they decided to just go for it and call out to the three strange men for help. But just as they were about to exit their car, the three men reached in to their pockets and took out a flashlight, a very modern flashlight, and flashed it right at the car, and they immediately ducked. But as soon as they ducked, by them I mean the passengers of the car, the three strange men walked up to the car and then began knocking on the window. Shivering and scared, the man decided to open the window and find out what these three men wanted. As he opened the window, he saw that the three men did not look as scary as before, but were timid old men, and they looked like they were monks. So he opened the window, and the monks immediately said, "Do you require assistance? This road is never quite empty, is never quite filled with people at this hour." The driver immediately responds, stating that yes, our car has broken down and we would be really glad if you could get us some sort of assistance. And the monks responded, saying that of course we definitely can. Our monastery is present just beyond this region, and you can stay there for the night. We also have mechanics, and we will have your car fixed within no time, and tomorrow in the morning you can leave right to your airport and probably make the next flight back home. The driver and the man were filled with joy and were very grateful and decided to trust these three monks and go spend the night in the monastery. As they went to the monastery, they realized that the path of the forest was not as scary as they seemed. It seemed like a rather peaceful place where animals and nature lived in harmony together. They slowly walked and walked across the forest beyond the lake and finally reached the monastery. As they entered the monastery, a sense of peace and warmth filled the air. There was calmness everywhere. There were multiple monks, ranging from all age groups. Children, probably 4 or 5 years old, who could barely talk, all the way to old men that seemed like they had a lot of wisdom and gravitas as they walked through the monastery, making sure that everything was in order. The three monks showed them to a specific room and stated that you can rest here for the night, and we will bring you some dinner as well, because you definitely must be hungry. Our mechanics will fix the car, and as we stated, tomorrow morning you'll be free to go. But make sure that you do not exit this monastery, and even if you do, make sure that just outside the monastery there is a small building. You do not enter that building. That building is not to be entered. Both the driver and the man said, "All right," and thanked the monks for the dinner, and went on to rest for the night. In the morning, they woke up to see all of these monks training in martial arts and having other monks meditating right beside them. The air was filled with this sense of peace, a sense of pride, and a sense of worthiness. For every single monk there seemed like they belonged. They seemed like they knew more than what the average man did. It seemed like they were wise beyond their years. The man thought a lot about this, and the driver was just happy that the car was apparently fixed. A monk who didn't seem like he should know how to drive drove the car in and stated that here's your car, it has been completely fixed, and the fuel tank has enough and more fuel for you to reach the airport. We hope that we have been able to serve you well and give you the hospitality that you expect from a monastery. The man and the driver thanked the monk and asked if there's any way how they can repay them or show gratitude for this sort of help that they received in the middle of the night. The monk said, "No, no, there is nothing that we require in return. Have a safe flight and enjoy." The two men, the driver and the man, said bye to all of the different monks that they spoke to last night and was about to enter the car. Just as the man entered the car, he heard this sound. It was a sound he never heard before. He wasn't ever able to describe it. It sounded like a sound that couldn't be made from anything on earth. It didn't sound like a sound at all, yet it was his ears that were picking it up, implying that the signal that he was receiving was a sound. But how could that be? Because it did not sound like a sound at all. So this man asked the monk, "What is that sound? What did I just hear? What did I just experience?" And the monk replies that, "Oh no, that is a question that can only be answered to a monk. For those who are not monks shall never receive the answer. Because there is more to life than what you know about. And the only way you can know more about it is by being a monk." The man pleaded to know, but the monks refused. And dejected, the man decided to just go to the airport and go back home. The man went home and spent the next months thinking about what that sound could have been. He thought about it, he wrote about it, he spoke about it. Others did not believe him, and his writings were never read. It was just an experience that he had, and nothing that he could think of was ever able to give him that experience again. He tried recreating it with various euphoric narcotics, but nothing gave him that sensation that that single sound gave him. As months passed by, almost a year had gone by. It was time for the renewal of this particular deal that was made between his corporation and that company in the island with the monastery and the monks. He knew immediately that it was about time that he would go back and give another presentation, this time much more confident and less nervous than he was the previous time around. But he was excited, not for the presentation, but because he knew that there was a slim possibility that he would find that monastery again, and this time experience that sound once again. He went on to go to the island and gave another presentation that was just perfect in every way, from his oration all the way to the details and the nitty-gritty fine lines of every single subtopic in the presentation was perfectly delivered. Once he was done delivering this particular presentation, it was time for him to drive back to his hotel for the flight which was scheduled the next afternoon. The path involved going past that forest once again, and all he could think about was that monastery. He started driving, this time booking his own car as a rental so that he might take time to stop and search for this specific monastery. And while he was doing so, he drove and drove and drove till he realized he was lost. His car was in perfect working condition, but he had no idea in which direction he should be going. The forest, although had a monastery filled with monks, was not a safe place. There were wild animals and treacherous roads, which might as well stop the car. So he was completely lost and needed to find a way out. He didn't know what to do, and it was dark. He couldn't see what path seemed like a smarter option and started to become scared. He decided that just like last time, the safest option is to stay in his car, locked up, and wait until the night gets over, so that during the daylight he can find his way back to the hotel or directly to the airport if it's too late. He began waiting in his car and thinking about how last year this time 3 monks had come out from the middle of nowhere and completely changed the way he experiences the world. And just as he was thinking so, 3 monks appeared. They came to his car, and he immediately opened the door and said, "Oh my God, it's amazing how you've come back this time as well." The monks respond saying that, "Yes, we knew that you were coming here, and we knew that you would probably get lost on the way back when we heard that you were taking a rental and did not take a driver this time. Don't worry, we have a space ready for you in the monastery, and you can stay there for the night as well. We have supper ready for you, and you can eat it and take rest for the rest of the night until tomorrow morning, where we will have one of our monks drive you out of this forest all the way to the airport and drop your car off to the dealership later on." The man was happy. He was filled with joy, and he went and followed the monks back to the monastery where he spent the night last year. The monastery was just the same age range of multiple monks present, doing their own thing, some studying, some painting, some doing martial arts, and some meditating. He went on to have his supper as he spoke to the various children present in that monastery. The children seemed to know so much about the world, as if they experienced it without even being old enough to have gone around the world and experienced the world the way they talk about it. It was amazing. The feeling of joy, the feeling of relaxation kept him pleased throughout the night. In the morning, as usual, he thanked all of the different monks that were present in the monastery and decided that it was time to leave once again. He waited beyond the time that he heard the sound last time, hoping that he'd hear the sound again. And finally, giving up, he decided to enter the car and go back to the airport once again. Just as he entered the car, this time as well, he heard the sound. And this time he was careful to figure out where the sound came from. And he thought real hard after listening to it and figured out that the sound must have come from that little room that was present just outside the monastery and was supposedly beyond access for him the previous and this time. It was supposedly out of bounds and very dangerous, and he was never supposed to enter that. He asked the monk once again, "What is in that room that you tell me not to go near?" And the monk says, "Inside that room, whatever lies can only be known and understood by a monk. If you are not a monk, what lies beyond can have grave consequences to your stability as a human being itself. The creation of the universe is beyond comprehension, and unless you go through the proper techniques and the proper path, knowledge beyond what you currently hold can be devastating." The man was confused, as how can finding out what lies inside a room, creating this noise that gives him an experience of euphoria, have dire consequences? How could that be? And what was the real path that would be necessary to be taken in order to find out what lies inside that room? The man was curious and asked the monk again, "What do I need to do to become a monk?" And the monk said, "Since you are not of monk ancestry, and you do not have the DNA or the blood of a monk running through your veins, the path for you to become a monk of this monastery will be tough. It's going to take you about 7 years to become a monk. And in these 7 years, you will be detached from all your worldly attachments. You will live in solitude. You will go through regions of the world and experience the harshest parts of nature. And you will find out the true heat of the sun in the Saharas and the ice cold snow of the Himalayas. But it's not just physical and mental torture that you will face. You will learn more than you've ever learned before, from languages to sciences, engineering, and technology. everything is necessary for you to understand the path of a monk. And beyond that, you will have training beyond what you currently have in your body and mind, where you will learn how to meditate and how to focus yourself and concentrate for hours and hours together. While physically, you will learn how to strengthen your body and become flexible and learn how to defend yourself against any attacks so that you and your knowledge remain intact and safe and can be passed on to the future generations, allowing for knowledge to go on increasing and developing forever. The man heard this and thought, 7 years of my life with so much of difficulty to just find out what lies inside one room and give this sort of experience? I don't think it's worth it. I already have a stable job. I'm currently doing really well. I'm traveling around the world and getting clients from all around. Maybe I should continue on this corporate life and just live it to keep my family happy. With that thought, he thanked all the monks once again and went back to the airport and reached all the way back home. This time, he told his family about it and told them that he heard it again, and he knows that it's from something within this room that has to be experienced only as a monk. And if he's not a monk, he won't be able to find out. His family stated that if it was so much of a life changing experience, this single noise that he heard, and he needed to know what caused it, they would be willing to go 7 years without him, just so that he can achieve the mental peace that he wants. But he said no. 7 years is a long time, and no matter how much of an experience that single sound has given me, I need to be there for my family. And with this thought, he continued on with his corporate life for another entire year. But throughout the year, as he worked, as he went abroad, as he bagged various clients from across the world, he never forgot that sound, that single experience that he couldn't get out of his mind no matter what he tried. And with that, as the year got over, it was time for him to go back there once again to give a presentation for renewing the contract. He went prepared, as usual, absolutely ready to give the assignment and get the deal. However, this time he knew that he had to spend the night in the monastery again. He didn't think about whether his car might stop or he might get lost. He knew that he was going to meet the monks. He just went after the meeting. After doing it really, really well, he took the car, went right to the middle of the forest, and switched off his engine. He just waited there until the 3 monks arrived. They told him, "Yes, we knew that you'd be waiting here for us. We have everything prepared for you, just like last time. You can come and spend the night, as you do every year, and you can leave in the morning, or you can stay based on your choice." The man followed the monk into the monastery and felt the same euphoria he did every time he came here before. He went on to greet the members that he started to become slightly familiar with and continued to bask in the glory that was present, the joy, the suffering, the pain that these students were going through while learning how to control their bodies to an inhumanly superhuman level. And he was in awe. If these children could do it, shouldn't he be able to do it as well? It's only 7 years. What's the worst that could happen, he thought. But he wasn't yet convinced. In the morning, he said his goodbyes and decided to leave early before he heard the noise, because he knew that if he heard the noise, maybe, just maybe, he'd change his decision and he'd spend the next 7 years in solitude. So he got his car ready and was just about to enter the car. And just as he entered the car, he heard the noise again. This time louder and clearer than ever before. He experienced it again and figured out that every time he goes to enter the car, he will hear that sound as he leaves the monastery, and therefore this is going to happen again and again and again until he figures out what made that sound, what is giving him that experience, what lies beyond within that room, what secrets are there to be unfolded. And so he asked the monk once again, "Are you sure that it's 7 years of my life that I would have to dedicate to find out what lies beyond?" The monk responds, saying, "Yes, 7 years is what it will take. And if you choose, the course is ready, and we will help you become a monk." The man thinks hard for 1 whole hour, just sitting there. All the people that he wouldn't be able to meet for 7 years, all the pain that he'll go through, both physically and mentally. He didn't know if he was strong enough, but he knew that if he did not find out what made that sound, he would not be able to go on and live his life normally, and he would just be a disappointment anyway. And therefore, he decided that it is about time that he learned the ways of the monk and truly became a monk of this monastery to find out what lies beyond that room. He called up his family and told them that he will meet them 7 years later, after finding out what remains inside that room that gives this feeling, this experience, and that makes that sound. The family was supportive and said, "Take your time, and we hope that this will give you the closure that you genuinely needed." He says, "All right," and embarks on his 7 year journey on becoming a monk. In the first year itself, he began learning languages. He had to learn various languages of the world because the next few years was going to be spent traveling to the various treacherous places of the world, ranging from volcanoes to deserts to mountaintops. And so he needed to know how to speak every local language so that he could experience this to the fullest. Therefore, the entire year was spent learning not just languages that were physically written and spoken, but the languages that are unspoken as well. That included body language, sign language, and so on and so forth. He learned how to talk in Spanish, French, in Arabic, in Hindi, in various other languages, including Braille, and went on to learn how to write every single language, no matter how hard the script was. He even learned Mandarin and Cantonese and everything that anyone could possibly communicate to him in. He was happy with whatever he learned in the first year, and with that, he moved into the second year. The second year is when he had to learn how to control his mind so that he would be ready to actually go on the treacherous journeys. So he sat and learned and trained to meditate, to keep his mind in focus, allow external details to slowly fade away. Every disturbance that came from outside would be nullified by his brain as he concentrated on any one thing. He could think of even nothing at all as he could slowly take his brain to a different place, away from any worldly attachments, away from worldly disturbances. A sacred, serene place where he just imagined being alone in the quietness for hours and hours. He learned the art of meditation, the art of focus, and the art of control. He was able to control his body in ways he never thought he could control it before. He was able to reduce his heart rate on command, reduce his breathing, increase it as he pleased, and have full control over any sort of thought that he wanted. His emotions were completely under his control now. He could get angry when he wanted, he could feel happy when he wanted. If he wished not to feel sad, he would not. If he wished not to get angry, he would continue to remain calm for as long as necessary. If he felt pain, he could make sure that his mind neglected it and moved forward with determination. And with this, he began his third year, where he learned his physical strength. He learned what his body was truly capable of. He was able to move his body in ways that he never thought he could before, from doing not just the full splits and the wheelbarrow, but also to increasing his strength to levels that his buddies in the gym could only reach. He was able to do push up after push up after push up, squat after squat after squat, sit up and crunches, right after all of that, again and again and again. He slowly learned how to use the concentration that he learned last year and convert them into reflexes and use his body to block different attacks and counterattack appropriately in ways to disarm the opponent. He learned how to defend himself against various weapons, whether it be knives, spears, swords, guns, or even something as simple as another person's fists. He learned everything that he could about martial arts, from the history to the present, the various kinds, and everything he did to strengthen his body made him stronger than he ever was before. He could feel the power within him. With his mind and body under control, it was time for him to embark on a 2-year-long journey around the world. He first went to the Sahara Desert, where he stayed in the hot sun and the freezing nights, day after day after day. He survived on barely any liquid and kept himself strong mentally and physically, and moved forward as he crossed through the entire Sahara Desert from one side to the other as fast as he could. Once he made it there, it was time to turn the tables and move over to the Himalayas. There, in the snow-peaked mountains, he went and meditated for weeks together in the freezing cold. All he wore was a single unit of an orange cloth that barely allowed him to store any body heat in those frigid conditions. Yet he did not swerve from his path. Later on, he had to visit active volcanoes, and there he went as close as possible to slow flowing lava and meditated and meditated throughout the time until the lava reached his skin. There he felt the burn and finally ended his meditation. He knew that it was going to be painful, but the test was if he would be able to meditate, keep his mind focused on the meditation and not on the danger that his body is about to face. With that, he went on to live in the Amazon rainforest for quite a few weeks. There he had to fight wild animals and live with zero external technology. He had to create his own fires to give him warmth and cook the meals that he had to catch himself, whether it was fish from the Amazon River or whether it was small rodents that he could find nearby. And with all of this training going around the world, he then had to visit big cities and talk to various people and preach what he learned in the last few years. With that, he finally returned with just 1 year of training remaining. He wondered what could happen in this 1 year, because to him it seemed like he already experienced everything there was to experience. And so he went on and asked, now that I've completed traveling the world, going through such treacherous feats, what is remaining for me to learn? And the monk said, the last year you learn how to teach. Whatever was taught to you in the last 6 years, you must now go on to teach the next generation. There are going to be students that are slower than you. There are going to be students that are faster than you. And you have to teach them in their own pace. You have to know how to handle each student separately and give them exactly what they need to learn whatever you learned in the last 6 years. He was really happy to know that the last year was a lot easier than the last six. But even then, he learned that teaching is sometimes just as hard as actually doing all of the things that he did in the last few years. Students come up with questions and just can't understand certain concepts, and you have to figure out the answers and figure out exactly how they would be able to comprehend the answers to those questions. And he went on to teach for an entire year. And after that, there was a huge ceremony, a ceremony that officially converted him from a normal man living a corporate life into a monk that knows so much from the different literatures to sciences to martial arts. And finally, the monks stated that now you have officially become one of us. Although you still have a lot left to learn from engineerings and other forms of sciences, you can now comprehend what is inside that room. And therefore, we can give you the key to that room. The monks handed him over this beautiful golden key and said that this key will unlock every question you have till you find your answer and you find out what made that noise that gave you that experience. The man says, "Wow, thank you so much for this honor." And he takes the key and goes to that room. The room is locked by this huge iron door. And he puts the key inside and slowly creaks it open. And the key turns and he opens the door. He enters and there's a passageway that's fairly long as it slowly steps down and moves underground. He goes down the passageway and comes across yet another door. This time, the door is made of bronze. And he wonders that if there's another door, he's given only one key. So what does he do? He thinks whether he should go back and ask the monk if there's another key that he forgot. But then he remembers that the monk said that this one key will answer all of your questions. And therefore, he tries to use this key in this particular door. And wow, to his surprise, the key actually fits into the lock and he turns it and opens it. And then he sees that the passage continues. So he goes on and finds yet another door. This time, the door is not made of iron or bronze, but is made of pure copper. He goes on to open this door and sees that there's another door, this time silver. And he wonders, why are there just door after door, and how long would this go on? But he has to know what made the noise, and so he opens the silver door, only to reveal a golden door. He realizes that, well, the metals seem to be getting more and more precious as we grow up. So maybe there is a limit to this. And so he opens the golden door. Inside the golden door, he finds another door, this time platinum. He knows that platinum is probably one of the costliest metals that these monks could get their hands on, and so he knows that this is probably the last metal door that is available, and beyond this is going to be the answer of what made the noise. And so he opens the door, and inside he sees a huge room with one huge door. The door was beyond anything he'd ever seen before. It was beautiful. It had innumerable number of jewels and gems studded across the entire shining golden finish. There were rubies, there were emeralds, there were diamonds, there were topazes, there were sapphires. They were sparkling around, forming the design of a shining dragon. A dragon that seemed like it had all the answers. It had everything that one could possibly want. He knew that this was the final door, because everything pointed to it. He knew that beyond this was the answer that he wanted for about 10 entire years now. This was his destiny. His life reached this single point in time. It was to find out what lies behind this single door. What could it be? What made the noise? He puts the key inside, he turns it, and the door slowly opens. And as it opens, beyond, he finally figures out what it was that created that particular noise. All of his answers finally received. Every question he had ever was all answered when he found out what made that noise. He figured out what the noise was, and he figured out how it was created and why he received the experience that he did. And he also figured out why the necessary training for 7 years was required for him to comprehend what made this sound. He finally had everything that he ever needed. With this knowledge, with this newfound joy, he found out the meaning of life and chose to go back to his family and spend the rest of his life happy, with no worries, a better person. It was all because of that one sound that he heard and his curiosity to find out what made that sound. That's about the end of the story. Of course, he did try to tell his family why it took him 7 years, but he couldn't explain to his family what the sound was. And of course, the family wouldn't be able to comprehend it because they would also need to go through 7 years of monk training to find out what exactly the noise was. Hopefully that gave you 1 hour of journey, I guess. This particular animation that was made was Avatar inspired and will be releasing a step-by-step tutorial really soon. Stay tuned for that, and if by chance you did make it to the end of the story, wow, I'm pretty sure that it's still gonna be only 0% of people that made it this far. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening and stay curious.